First things first, Declan. How are you?
I'm great. Yeah, I'm doing well.
Very good, very good. Well, what I want to start with is last time we spoke, you told me you grew up in a very musical family. Were they politically inclined?
In some ways, yeah. I mean, I think everyone has their political opinions. I think my family is quite, engaged in a lot of things, especially, I think more so now than ever before. I think much like a lot of people, recently politics has been very, very unusual and people have become a lot more engaged in it. So, but yeah, I think my family's always been quite, engaged in politics and stuff.
And did you notice yourself being interested in those kind of things very early on, or did it kind of gradually happen as you got older?
I think it happens gradually. I mean, I think, I always had these sort of opinions on politics, but you don't really have much of an understanding of it so early on when you're so young. But, as you grow up, you kind of realize, like, oh, I follow this, like, belief system, or I, like, don't agree with this and I do agree with this, and, like, you kind of analyze it a little bit more when you get older. But I think you always kind of have an opinion, and the way you're brought up very much like influences that. And it's, people talk about like good people and bad people, but it's generally just like, one person was brought up here, one person was brought up there, and yeah.
And so when music came in, what did that with? How did that affect you? Was that an outlet for you in a way?
In some ways, I mean, I've just always been interested in music. It's just always been something that I've done. Always like been writing songs and listening to music, and it's just, I don't know. I think it's just such an enjoyable thing, and to be able to, like, I guess, talk about a lot of, things, sometimes politics in these sorts of things is quite a nice thing to be able to do. And I guess I'm in a position now which I never really expected to be in, where I can talk about these things in songs and kind of just enjoy myself and have fun, but also have people hear it and have people be like, oh, he's talking about this, and I don't know, hopefully make people think a little bit. I mean, I just point out things that I don't like generally.
Well, which is the point you make, that making people think a little bit. Is that kind of, I don't want to say the message, but that you have a message of sorts, but do you want to kind of stimulate people to think about stuff?
I mean, sometimes, like, I don't know, mainly I just want people to enjoy it, but I think in some ways, like, I think it's, it's cool if people, like, listen to something and they're like, oh, snap, this is about that, and, it makes them sort of think about it, or, it gets people who, sort of would think about things, but maybe just gets them a little bit more engaged in it. I think, there is a sort of thing now where a lot of young people are becoming engaged in politics, and I think that's a really good thing, and I guess I'm just kind of happy to be one part of that. Right.
And, well, if we go into the music, then the kids don't want to come home. The track, I believe it starts out with Our Generation is Lost.
Yeah, the music video, yeah.
So where did that kind of sentiment or that idea come from?
Well, I mean, the video, the idea for the video was kind of, because I mean, I can give my perspective as much as possible, but it was kind of to get this group of young people and just let them talk, and have all these different perspectives of people, and the guys is, I think, A Generation is Lost, and I think that's like, I guess it kind of sums up a lot of things, because there's just all this. There's another thing that one of my friends actually said in it. He said there was all this abundance of confusing information spat out at us. And I think that's kind of where that thing stems from. It's like there is all this confusing generation. There's all this confusing information.
Right.
That sort of the young generation is, is given, and everyone is, and there's sort of this, there's all this fear and all these destructive things happening, and everyone's kind of confused and they just don't know what to do. Like, as a young person, it's like, oh, what am I going to do with the world if there's all this destruction going on, and the planet's being, destroyed, and people are being killed for this, that, and the other, and it's a very confusing time. And it's, a lot of people would say for young people it's kind of always been that way. There's always been this, like, disconnect with the political elite and with the wider world, and it's like, listen to us. And yeah, I think that's how a lot of young people are feeling at the minute.
So where does, in a way, modern technology fit in? Because nowadays we do have access to a
Yeah.
lot of information, and
Exactly. It's scary, and it's good, and it's bad, and it's all these different things at once. You know, we have a lot of information, and there's this whole thing about fake news and
Right,
like, post-truth and stuff, and it's like, what can I believe? What's true? What's like objective? What's subjective? You know, it's very hard to gauge an opinion on something when you don't know where the facts are and where they're coming from. You know, yeah, and it's so easy for people to form an opinion on something without being well informed on it, and without, you know, the truth being part of it, and which is scary, and which is where a lot of politics is at the minute. Yeah.
And part of it, I think, is, and it's not just in the UK, but I believe everywhere, where there's a big discrepancy between what older people think and what younger generations think. So,
Yeah.
as someone, and I believe this was when you were 17, you kind of advocated for the people being
giving
able
younger
to
people
vote.
the vote.
So why do you think younger people aren't being taken seriously?
I don't know. I think it's quite an outdated thing. I mean, I think, you know, for a long, long time, you know, the young people, we had the poll tax riots in the UK and stuff like that. You know, it's the younger generation sort of wanting to speak out against things. Obviously, not exclusively. You know, there's older people talking about these things too, and there's young people who are against these things. But yeah, there's a certain thing. Like recently, I think the thing that sparked it is Brexit. You know, we're like, oh, well, I'm 18 now, and it hasn't happened yet, but I couldn't vote in it because at the time I wasn't old enough. But why wasn't I old enough? Yeah, it's like, you know, it's like, you're not old enough to do this. Why aren't I old enough? Like, what is the judge of why I'm not old enough? You know, I think, yeah, it's just, I feel like myself and, you know, a lot of young people around me are, you know, intelligent enough to form a decision on this and make a decision that at the end of the day impacts our future for a longer period of time than sort of a lot of older people who are voting for it. So I guess it's a motion that, yeah, that a lot of young people are sad that they couldn't vote in.
Have you noticed this realization? Did you already have it when you were still in school, and or did it come because of the type of music that you make and the responses that you've gotten to it?
I've always been engaged in this sort of thing. I've always been interested in politics, in you know, the wider world and all these sorts of things. I think it's just always been a part of my life, really.
But in terms of because these are then ideas you have, but then now you get this response from other younger people, and then kind of acknowledgement that people are engaged. And so did you start noticing this when you started making music, or was this already?
I think you do notice it more when, you know, when you start getting things out there and people are like, yeah, I agree with this. Like when I first wrote like Brazil and Bethlehem and Paracetamol, you know, my first couple of songs didn't have any expectation for anyone to hear them. I was just writing songs, and then it was like, oh, and then people were like writing me up as this like political figure in their blogs, and I was like, I never really intended to be that. I was just kind of making songs, and they just happened to be political. But I was like, oh, okay, cool, I can like talk about these things and people will listen. So I think, you know, this time is a better time than any to like talk out about things that you believe in. And, you know, I don't think my music is restricted to that. You know, not everything is like all politics and but you know, a lot of it is, because I think it is you know, it's just always been a part of what I've been writing, and, you know, a lot of art is just inherently political.
And well, like you said, that there's more to it than just the political stuff. So when you play shows, what is the mentality when you go into shows? Is it just
live shows
fun,
is just about fun, just trying to get everyone to have fun. Like we just try and be as rowdy as possible, and just, I don't know, we just did our first like headline UK tour, me and my band, and it was cool, like, just seeing people, like, losing their shit. Just over, like, a bunch of songs I've written. We've only really released, like, 7 tracks, and, you know, there's 2 of them are B-sides, and people were, like, you know, into them, and they knew the songs, and they were, like, listening to the new ones, and, yeah, just having a really good time and having a bit of a party, which is what we try and do. Just, you know, I think live music should just be about having fun and letting go. And yeah, a lot of people, especially in the UK, can be a bit stubborn about, you know, not really letting loose at live shows, which is kind of the barrier that we try and break every show. Is like, make everyone here stop being like awkward and static and like actually enjoy themselves.
Is that a tough thing to do then?
It depends. I mean, often on support shows it is,
Right.
you know, tough to do, but you kind of just have, it's something you have to do. I mean, some shows, like, we just did Cage the Elephant, a support around the UK, and, like, you know, their fans were really, really, like, nice to us, and they were all, you know, sort of, at least by the end of the set, kind of getting into it and, you know, enjoying themselves a little bit, whereas a lot of support shows, you'll be like, hey, and then you'll play your songs and everyone just stands there and tolerates you and they're just waiting for the headline band, which is kind of all you can hope for, but we do try and, you know, break the barrier as often as possible.
And because I saw a couple of pictures of the tour,
Yeah.
which seemed like everybody was having
It was
good-
quite a
good time.
rowdy tour, I wasn't expecting it at all.
But am I right in saying, because I'm not sure about this, but it was a sold-out tour?
Yeah, the whole tour, it's
So,
crazy.
and like you say, you've only released a handful of songs.
Yeah.
So what does that tell you about what you're doing?
I mean, you know, in December, I had no expectation for the tour to sell out. You know, I'd been selling for a while, and it was like, you know, oh, this is cool. You know, I'm doing a tour, and it was like, all of a sudden, there was like, just all the tickets were gone, and I was like, where are all these people coming from? And then I went to the shows, and there's all these people who like know the words to the songs, and it's just like, I don't know. I wonder if I'll be able to get used to it, because it is just so bizarre, and like, I'm just so not used to that. But it was awesome. Like, yeah, I couldn't have really asked for like a better couple of shows. And
Right.
I'm just, yeah, it's made me very excited to do more of this sort of thing. And we're doing our first headline shows in Holland soon as well, which is awesome.
Very good. And then finally, because, well, you're also working on an album.
Yes.
And last time I asked you about the title, and you said you were thinking about calling it "What Do You Think of My New Record?" Is
What
that
do you think
still
about the
plan?
car?
Oh, that's.
Maybe I said it wrong.
No, but maybe I wrote it down wrong. Okay.
That was the working title. We'll see.
But how far along are you now?
I literally just finalized the masters yesterday, so it's like made. It's gonna come out in a couple of months, like pretty much before summer. So, yeah, it's exciting. I think we're gonna announce it very, very soon once we can kind of finish making all the artwork and stuff like that.
And this may sound silly, but is it important to you, this debut record, to kind of set the standard for yourself?
Yes and no. I think it's definitely not going to be my best record. I think I'm a better songwriter now than I was when I was 15, and
Right.
this whole record has been almost like a span of progression. So I think the last 2 songs I wrote for it was I think maybe the best songs on it, and I think it's a good place to kind of leave it and go like, right, this is going to be an album, rather than waiting another 2 years and writing another group of songs, which may be a bit better, but it's like, I don't know. I think this album was worth making and is worth putting out, and then the next album's hopefully going to be a lot better than that, and the next album's going to be better, and it's all going to be progression, and it's all going to be very different. And yeah, I'm excited to put it out and just have a group of songs that I'm really, really happy with, and just show the world.
Looking forward to it.
As am I.
Declan, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.